Hello and welcome once again to The Blueprints. This is Canada's Conservative Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Schmale, Member of Parliament for Haliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock, with new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program. If you're on YouTube, hit the bell. You'll be notified when new content is made available. On today's show, we are talking about Randy Boissonnault. He's out of cabinet. Justin Trudeau's at a conference claiming you're a little selfish for wanting to eat. And, of course, the production cap on Canada's oil and gas industry. That and much, much more. We bring on Pat Kelly, the Member of Parliament for Calgary Rocky Ridge. Thanks for coming on the show.
My pleasure, Jamie. Good to be here.
It's been a while. I do apologize.
Oh, a little while, but good to be here today. And
well, we're going to rock the world today.
All right.
Well, Justin Trudeau's doing that himself. So last week, Randy Boissonnault, Mr. Other Randy Guy, co-owned a company, GHI, Global Health Imports, got a government contract during COVID. And somehow, through one lie after another, our team was able to uncover that he was actually co-owning the company while he was in cabinet, which is a big wrong thing to do here. It's a big no-no for ethics laws.
Yeah, he should have been forced to resign or fired within the hour when it was discovered that this guy was actually actively managing a business while in cabinet. I mean, that's absolutely unacceptable. Unacceptable conduct. Unfit. He is unfit to be a member of parliament. To be a member of cabinet. But that was only the beginning, Jamie.
Oh, that was the beginning.
We went from that kind of conflict of totally unacceptable conflict of interest, which would have been a resignable offense under any previous government. We go from that to discovering that he has lied about his about having Indigenous ancestry in order to try and get a procurement contract that was specifically set aside for Indigenous-owned businesses. Mm-hmm. So these guys pretended that they were a 100% Indigenous-owned business, right? Because they only had two partners, and you had to be 51% to qualify. So they ticked that box. Mm-hmm. Boissonnault had a long history of ever-shifting claims of Indigenous heritage. And so, I mean, that's fraud. You're applying under a false pretense to get a contract. And then we discover that they have the same mailing address as a known cocaine smuggler. So, I mean, this thing is just bizarre. I mean, this company is accused of fraud, is accused of defrauding its customers. It's the subject of multiple lawsuits. And, the real question around the firing of Randy Boissonnault is, why did it take so long?
Well, exactly. And he had no shame, to your earlier comment. He had no shame about pushing down legitimate Indigenous-owned businesses in order to try and enrich himself.
Right.
That's unbelievable. And then we still find out his company, or his co-owned company, maybe or not, he still owns it, who knows, is still greenlit to apply for government contracts. Yeah. This is unbelievable.
Totally unbelievable. I mean, this guy and this business of theirs is really just pandemic profiteering.
Yeah, exactly.
They weren't these guys saw dollar signs at the beginning of the pandemic and tried to just set themselves up to basically just add up and mark up prices from other sources of procurement for personal protection equipment. And I mean, the whole thing was just a pack of lies.
Yeah, it's really shameful. But you're right. In Stephen Harper's day, a $16 glass of orange juice gets you removed from cabinet and eventually resignation as a member of parliament. Here, it's, have time to prove your innocence or whatever they're trying to do, get out from under this. That's unbelievable. So Justin Trudeau was out of the country for the beginning of last week. He was at a conference in Brazil. He was mixing it up with all the super important people, but he had time to go to a global citizen conference. And my goodness, I can't believe what actually, this guy is so out of touch from the pain he has caused. And I'm laughing just because it's so frustrating. So wait till you hear this comment. Let's cue up cut one. This is Justin Trudeau at the Global Citizen Conference. Play cut one.
Disruptions of the supply chain have a lot of individual citizens, voters, families really worried that they're not able to make ends meet. And it's really, really easy when you're in a short-term survive. I got to be able to pay the rent this month. I got to be able to buy groceries for my kids, to say, okay, let's put climate change as a slightly lower priority. And that's something that's instinctive. When the storm comes, you want to hunker down and just sort of huddle up and wait for it to blow over. We can't do that around climate change.
Oh my goodness. How dare you little people be so selfish and want to eat and shelter yourself and your family? You are just not getting, the super smart people way of thinking that you should sacrifice and not eat for the greater good. This is incredible.
Yeah, and that whole nonsense clip even begins with a false premise that there is some kind of just immediate short-term problem going on in Canada. This government has presided over a 9-year decline in living standards in Canada. Per capita GDP is lower now than it was 9 years ago when they took office. We are not inside some just short-term, this month crisis that people should be expected to get over. This is systemic now. Canadians are getting poorer while liberal insiders are getting richer.
That's right. Now, yeah, you're right. Actually, you bang on too. The problems are baked in at this point, with carbon tax increases set to happen, capital gains taxes, other taxes. We're not building stuff in this country anymore. We have an election that just passed in the U.S. that's going to try to put up some pretty interesting barriers that are going to hurt Canadian businesses. And this Prime Minister and this Liberal government has made us so uncompetitive. The investment dollars are just going to flee, and they have already.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this, especially in the oil and gas sector, where capital flight has been going on for years and years and years. There's now a nearly $500 billion investment deficit between money invested from the United States in Canada versus Canadian money going to the U.S. It's a $500 billion deficit in favor of the United States. That's money that's been sucked out of Canada and taking jobs and living standards and even the tax base and ability to support public services with it.
Well, it's going to get worse because now we have another attack on the oil and gas industry. We have a production cap. So this Liberal government, in its infinite wisdom, has decided, let's attack, again, one of the remaining few anchors in our economy.
Yeah, it's amazing what these guys, the economic vandalism that these guys are capable of. I mean, they came in, brought in Bill C-69 right away, a law that basically prohibits large projects from going ahead in Canada. And now on top of all that, now they're going to cap. They're calling it an emissions cap, but let's call it what it is. It's a production cap. It will ultimately harm the industry and trigger investment decisions to be made in favor of other jurisdictions that don't place these limitations on themselves. So we're not actually going to lower emissions at all with this cap. We're just going to export our emissions and allow other countries to have the production that should be going on in Canada. So this is just one more way in which this government is letting everyone from Putin and dictators throughout the world to benefit from our restrictions in our industry and take up the slack without the same standards, environmental standards and emissions. I mean, there are many other elements to environmental regulation too, and Canada is a world leader in what we do. Innovation is driving down emissions per barrel produced, and that's going to continue to take place if we'll let the industry just get on with producing a commodity that the world needs instead of just allowing everywhere from Venezuela to Russia to take up the slack for what should be Canadian production.
Well, how many world leaders have we had right now? We had the Chancellor of Germany, we had the Prime Minister of Japan. There was another one in there that came asking for Canadian energy. Just a few weeks ago, we had the head of the EU saying they're going to buy American industry. So, but the Prime Minister's whole contention is there's no business case for this energy.
Yeah.
What does he know that nobody else seems to know?
Well, he's the guy killing the business
Right.
case. I mean, the business case is there, if not for the regulation that this Prime Minister imposes that kills off production and drives investment away from Canada into other energy-producing jurisdictions. So, yes, there is a clear need globally for the energy products that we produce in Canada. And it's about time we had a government that would stop making things worse, stop harming the industry that really is the backbone of the Canadian economy and the backbone of the Canadian government and the governments across Canada, their taxation base that funds public service.
Mm-hmm. And one of the areas or sectors always that is targeted for lowering emissions is the transportation sector. And up until Justin Trudeau and his super smart administration came in, it used to be well known that government would set the targets and then industry itself would work to meet those targets. And we've talked about this many times in the show. The auto industry, for example, they might use aluminum, or one company might have a better engine, or you get the same power from a four-cylinder than you would have a V6, right? So by setting those targets, industry meets them. Right now, it's shutting down the ones that they don't like, and then government investing tax dollars into an industry that they feel is the winner going forward.
Yeah, well, that's another problem that we've seen under this government is just the when we throw out actual subsidies for business activity. Business will do what's in the interest of their shareholder, and if there's government money to be taken, their business model will adapt to that and go for the government's money. And the problem with that mentality too is where we get into problems that we've seen with SDTC, where if you want a subsidy-based economy, you end up with just well-connected insiders that end up getting rich, while Canada fails to actually meaningfully move the needle on emissions. We've just had a recent report showing that Canada is still I think number 62 out of 67 countries rated for their emissions performance, and yet insiders get wealthy, capital leaves the country, and industry suffers. Canadians' standards of living decline, and eventually we have the erosion of the base of our public services. The energy industry pays $45 billion in taxes. That is almost the entire. That's far exceeds the defense budget. Mm-hmm. It's closing in on the health transfer to provinces. Like, that's the level of revenue for public services that come from this industry. And this government is just every time you turn around, it's a new thing to try and drive investment and activity out of that sector.
Yeah, our manufacturing has been hurt because of the policies of this federal government. We still don't have a softwood lumber deal. Mining isn't expanding at the rate it probably should. Now we have a production cap on oil and gas. This is one hammer to the economy after another. Yeah. These are some pretty big players and a lot of employers out there in the spin-off jobs associated with these industries.
Yeah, there's only one solution, and that's an election. I mean, we need to change a government as soon as possible to reverse this and start to get serious about productivity in Canada so that we can get money invested back into Canadian jobs, back into Canadian living standards, and back into Canadian public services.
And the government out of the way. And
indeed.
We've said it before, I'll quickly say this, you want to look at an industry, a sector that is doing well because the government is, for the most part, out of the way. Look at the beer industry. Look at the music industry, right? Those industries are able to flourish because of innovation. You look at where the government has the tightest grip, it's where the people are the most unhappy because they have a lack of choice and a lack of better products or service. The telecommunications, you can name one, airlines to a certain extent as well. We're pretty much out of time, but as you know, the guests get the last word, so the floor is yours.
Well, thanks. It's always a pleasure to be on the show. And as I said, it really is time for a carbon tax election. Canadians are fed up with this government. They are fed up with the kinds of corruption that we've seen, where insiders, where we have cabinet ministers running their own, actively managing the affairs of their own businesses from the cabinet table. We need to stop this ongoing pattern where Canadian living standards go down while Liberal insiders get rich.
I couldn't agree with you more. Pat Kelly, Member of Parliament for Calgary Rocky Ridge. Appreciate your time. We appreciate yours as well. If you like what you've heard, please tell your friends. They can download it on platforms like CastBox, iTunes, Google Play, and Spotify. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this program because we have new content for you every single Tuesday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So until next week, Remember, low taxes, less government, more freedom. That's the blueprint.